Hey everyone, welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. If you've ever woken up in a dead panic, sweating bullets because you couldn't remember where you hid that tiny piece of paper with your 24-word seed phrase, well, you are definitely in the right place today. So in our last explainer, we dug into the architecture and the core mechanics of account abstraction. We popped the hood to see how it totally rewires transaction validation. But today, we're zooming out. We're going to look at what this actually means for everyday users and the developers building these systems. We'll be weighing the real-world perks against the operational risks so you can make highly informed design choices for your own protocols. Here is our engineering blueprint for today. First, the Smart Account Upgrade. Second, 5 major UX benefits. Third, operational and security trade-offs. Fourth, real-world applications. And finally, number 5, the final balance sheet. All right, let's dive into Section 1, the Smart Account Upgrade. Moving from rigid keys to programmable policies. Honestly, the entire foundation of what we're talking about today rests on this one massive conceptual shift. Think about a traditional externally owned account, or an EOA. It is literally just a single physical brass key to your front door. It is incredibly rigid. It's a massive single point of failure, right? Whoever holds that one physical key has total, absolute control of the house. You lose the key, you lose the house. No backups, no safety nets, just a raw manual signature. Account abstraction, on the other hand, takes that basic house and completely upgrades it into a programmable smart home. Instead of relying on one brass key, the account contract itself becomes the boss. It decides who gets in. You can set up retinal scans or, timed access codes for guests, or even a rule that says 3 family members have to turn their keys at the exact same time. The network isn't just blindly accepting a signature anymore. It's actively watching your smart home's internal policy approve the transaction, entirely based on the programmable rules you wrote. Okay, so what do we actually get when we upgrade from that clunky brass key to a full-on smart home? That brings us to Section 2, 5 major UX benefits, upgrading the user experience. The absolute game changer here is that this programmability strips away a massive amount of user friction. First up, we get way smoother onboarding. Users don't have to stress over securing a raw private key right out of the gate because the account contract can handle other, much easier authentication methods. Number 2, flexible transaction batching. You know how annoying it is to approve a token, sit around waiting for the transaction to clear, and then finally execute a swap? Well, with account abstraction, all those steps get batched together into one single, seamless contract-level execution. Third benefit? Sponsored gas. This is huge. Imagine someone using a dApp and they literally never have to hold any ETH to pay for network fees. A relayer or a paymaster just steps in and covers it for them. Fourth, we have programmable spending guards. You can literally write a custom policy that says, hey, limit my transfers to $100 a day unless I provide a secondary approval. And fifth, richer recovery flows. If a user loses access, it's not game over. They can use programmable social recovery instead of crying over that lost piece of paper we talked about earlier. This makes interacting with the blockchain feel just as seamless as using your favorite Web 2 apps. But look, let's be real. A smart home needs electricity, it needs software updates, it needs an internet connection. If the Wi-Fi drops, you might find yourself locked out in the cold. And that brings us to Section 3, operational and security trade-offs, the cost of running a smart system. To really understand the risks here, we have to talk about the account guardian. So what is an account guardian? Well, it's basically a programmable rule, a module, or even a trusted entity that completely replaces that single private key when it comes to authorizing transactions. But here's the catch. This fundamentally shifts your trust assumptions. You are no longer just trusting pure, unbreakable cryptography. Now, you're trusting code. And unfortunately, bugs in your policy code can directly translate into lost funds. You've essentially expanded your attack surface because complex programmable logic naturally has way more room for error than a simple math equation verifying a signature. And as you'll see, every single feature comes with a very specific cost. You want the amazing benefit of having no raw keys? Awesome. The mechanism there is account contract authorization. But the operational baggage is that you, the developer, now have to build entirely secure recovery and identity linkage systems. Want sponsored gas? Sounds great. A relayer pays for it. But now you're on the hook to build tight cost accounting and anti-abuse controls. Otherwise, bots are going to drain your relayer's funds in seconds. How about batching? Well, that requires contract-level execution. So now you have to carefully manage atomicity. If one single operation in that batch fails, how does your system gracefully handle the rest? And those cool spending guards? They rely on custom policy modules, which means you're going to need formal smart contract audits and very safe, reliable pathways for upgrades. Basically, every ounce of friction you remove for the user adds a heavy layer of operational complexity for the developers. So, how does this actually look in practice? Let's jump to Section 4, Real-World Account Abstraction, Translating Blueprints to Live Products. Let's see how these theoretical pros and cons actually show up in the wild. Fun fact, students in our advanced courses at Forge College frequently tackle these exact scenarios when they're building out modern wallet architectures. Take Scenario A, the social recovery wallet. Instead of a lost key nightmare, the account contract accepts a recovery transaction that's authorized by a quorum of guardians. This could be a mix of hardware wallets, a few trusted friends, maybe even an institutional recovery service. From the user side, it's amazing. Recovery is just a simple policy question now. But for the product team, you suddenly have to design an intuitive UI for selecting those guardians. You have to manage off-chain coordination messages, and most critically, you have to build bulletproof security to stop those guardians from colluding and running off with the user's funds. Moving on to Scenario B, subscription services. Here, account abstraction lets a service sponsor gas, paying the network fee so the user doesn't need to hold any ETH whatsoever. This creates an incredibly smooth Web 2-style onboarding experience. But the provider now has to run relayers and build sophisticated fraud detection just to stop scripted accounts from spamming the network on their dime. Plus, think about the commercial trade-off. Who bears the cost when the network gets congested and gas prices suddenly spike? The provider is the one eating that financial risk. And then we have Scenario C, DeFi automated strategies. Imagine a protocol that bakes safety limits and automated rebalancing right into the user's account. The user doesn't have to sit there manually managing complex DeFi positions anymore. It's wildly convenient. But the liability totally flips. If there's a bug in that strategy code, or say a governance mistake, or even an Oracle manipulation, it hits a ton of users all at once. The protocol team takes on this massive blast radius, and they absolutely have to maintain rigorous upgrade tooling and emergency pause mechanisms to keep everyone safe. Which brings us to our conclusion, Section 5, the final balance sheet, making informed design choices. At the end of the day, designing systems with account abstraction is entirely about weighing the UX gains against the operational surface area that you're actually willing to accept. Let's wrap this up with 3 practical principles. Number 1, every single user experience improvement comes from moving authorization into a programmable policy, and that exact move increases the amount of code you've got to secure, audit, and monitor. Number 2, recovery patterns are great because they reduce the risk of a single point of failure, but they introduce new governance and trust decisions. You absolutely must design those flows with explicit threat models in mind. And number 3, operational responsibility. Things like running relayers or maintaining module registries, well, that shifts costs and liabilities away from the user and directly onto the product teams. You have to make those commercial choices extremely explicit early on in your design process. So the ultimate question for any Web3 builder is this: just how much operational complexity are you willing to manage to remove friction for your end user? It's a provocative architectural question, and to be honest, there is no single right answer. It depends entirely on what you're actually building. This core tension perfectly sets the stage for our next explainer, where we're going to dive into the future directions and implications of account abstraction and explore how evolving standards are attempting to solve these exact trade-offs. If you want to dive deeper into the subject, check out our Smart Account Contract code walkthroughs or explore any of our other incredible Web3 learning tracks, head on over to Forge College. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.